I was sexually abused from the time I was 3 to the time I was a teenager. When you go through childhood molestation, there's a lot of coercion. There's not a lot of force. There's not a lot of physical force, someone holding you down. There's somebody that manipulates your mind, tricks you, makes you think things are all right. When I started to realize that it was wrong, I changed. I started feeling guilty, but there was still a part of me that was attached to it and attracted to it and liked it. And it was a relationship that I had developed with this person. Finally, I told my mom, and my whole world caved in and everything changed. My perception of what I thought was right and what I thought was wrong became totally different than the way I was raised, or not the way I was raised, but the way that I understood the world to be. Once that happened, once my world changed, I became very angry. It's hard to be mad at your parents for a long time because you see them every day and they weren't really to blame. It's hard to be mad at the police department because they're so powerful, but it was really easy to be mad at God because God wasn't there to talk back to me. I didn't think he wasn't there to defend himself. I felt like how could this happen? How could he let this happen? From being angry and being depressed and being confused, it was really easy for me to turn to drugs and alcohol and then to go into nightclubs and going out and being promiscuous. And I turned to drugs and alcohol. I turned to methamphetamine specifically. The thing about meth for me was that, not that I thought, oh, I've been molested, I want to just run away from my problems. Meth made me feel so good that I just didn't want to stop feeling good. It gave me so much release from the anger that I was feeling. And what I really realized right now is that it was just distracting me or giving me problems I was willing to deal with. Like, I was willing to go to jail. I was willing to be sick without drugs, but I wasn't willing to deal with the things that were bothering me or the things I felt guilty about. You know, my drug addiction went on for a long time. One thing about being on a mind-altering substance is it alters your mind. Your mind is who you are, you know, what you care about, what you love, what you're afraid of. All those things changed. My mind was altered. All those things changed. Rob changed. I changed. I became someone different. I became someone that was angry, someone that was addicted, someone that was vengeful, and someone that was just hurting inside. My grandmother got really sick, and it wasn't even her dying wish. She just looked at me when she was in the hospital and said she wished that she could see me sober. I don't remember thinking that I was going to give that to her, and I don't remember thinking that that was when a light got switched on in my head. It's just that at that time, her words didn't mean anything to me, and I was high at the time that she said it. Shortly after that, she died, and I was high at her funeral. I showed up to her funeral high on meth. I remember watching and looking at her and sitting in the coffin thinking that this woman that means so much to me has passed away. But all I could think about was that I was so high I had to get out of there because I just wanted to feel good and go alone and be somewhere. When I came down from that high, I remember going to her grave and nobody in the family was talking to me. My grandmother had just died. Everybody had turned their backs on me. They were done. They were tired of dealing with the addict no matter what. You know, I know one thing for sure. Somebody told me once that in the beginning I was a victim. Everything I did from then on out, I caused. I wanted it to happen. And they were right. I did. I went and searched for a pain that I was willing to deal with. So I remember going to my grandmother's grave. I didn't have a place to live. I was just living on the streets, you know, going back and forth from here to Denver, doing drug deals, doing whatever I could do to keep my head above water. And I came down one time and I went to her gravestone and to her grave, and I remember literally tapping out on the grave and thinking, I want to be done with this life. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I know in the beginning that's how God got involved. I know that he was leading me down this path to recovery. I didn't understand it at the time. I just kept doing things that were out of the ordinary, like talking to my family, expressing my feelings, dealing with things I had never dealt with before. Before you know it, I had 2-3 weeks sober, 4 weeks sober. I still hadn't turned my life over to God yet. I still hadn't really had a good relationship with him. We hadn't had it out yet. I hadn't told him how I felt, and I hadn't heard the answers that I thought I wanted to hear. Little by little, I got sober but developed other issues. I cross-addicted over into food. I cross-addicted over into sex, relationships, so many different things that although I wasn't using, I was still really confused. 3 years into my sobriety, I had a nervous breakdown and was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and an anxiety disorder. The only thing that had kept keeping me sober up until that point was exercise, going out for a run, doing something, swimming, biking, anything to distract my mind. Finally, at one point in my life, a friend invited me to go to his church, and I turned him down. I wasn't really interested in going. It seemed silly to me. Finally, I went to the church with him, and it was okay. It was cool. I felt like I needed to talk to God, to at least have it out. I knew I believed in God because I was mad at him. So they did the altar call. My wife had already gone to work. She had to be at work at 12:30, and church went till 1. They did an altar call, and I remember walking up there thinking in my head, what the heck am I doing? My wife's not even here. I'm walking up to the front of the church, and I don't even understand why I'm walking or what I'm doing or what I want from this. And when I got to the front of the church, Pastor Larry Ruiz was the pastor, looked at me, and he grabbed my hands and he said, "I want to pray with you. Is that okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And the first thing out of his mouth was, "God, Rob doesn't know what he's doing here." And it was pretty funny that he said that because I really didn't know. From that day on, when I would go for my runs, when I would go swim, when I would bike, when I would lift weights, instead of listening to my iPod, I would listen for God's voice. And I started hearing it for the first time, and I started hearing that God had been with me the whole time and had a plan for me. And little by little, things got easy for me. I went from having anxiety, not being able to leave the house, to doing Ironman triathlons, to developing a program, Addict to Athlete, that helps people stay sober by using exercise and turn their lives around by using fellowship and by using pushing their bodies to the limits. It was seamless. I had an idea. It was so seamless. God had to be involved in it. The program's grown, and it's spreading everywhere. It's helping tons of people. I know that God was involved in that because it took very little effort from me. I knew I was off of drugs and alcohol, and I knew I was recovering, but I knew I was walking and a recovered person once I accepted God and started reading and understanding what Jesus was teaching. Now, I feel like I'm more than I could have ever dreamt to be. The wounds that I had before are gone. My family's proud of me. I walk a righteous path and try to stay humble and try to change lives. And I wake up every day grateful to God. I wake up every day motivated to help affect people, change the world. My name is Rob Archuleta, and I am second.